All right, we're rolling. What's up? This is Ben. Thank you all for joining me all over the place podcast. Today, I have the esteemed honor and privilege and frightening pleasure to bring to you my guest, Mr. James Jude Courtney. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm so good. It is such an honor to talk to you because I'm sure you've talked to so many people that have told you that lifelong Halloween fans, horror movie fans. So it's a real honor to have you on here. Thank you for taking the time. But yeah, I mean, when I told some friends of mine that I was going to get the opportunity to talk to you, and they're so jealous. They're so mad and jealous because they all know my love and passion for horror movies, especially Halloween being my favorite. So I told them, they were like, man, that's incredible. And they all had different stuff. Ask him this, ask him this, ask him this. I said, man, I'm not going to try to totally geek out on him, but it's going to be hard not to.
And no, I really appreciate it. I appreciate being here, man. And it's such a joy to have played this role, man, and to be able to connect with so many beautiful human beings because of it.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I know you've done all kinds of different stuff. I know that, not to creep on you too much, but I know that you worked at Universal Studios for a while, right?
Right. And I started out as a tour guide.
Yeah.
And, but then the most fun was doing the live show, The Adventures of Conan.
Yeah.
That was just a blast. Yeah.
And you started out doing that, and I know you were on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So when it came time for Halloween, like how did it all come about? When you auditioned for Michael Myers? Obviously, there's no speaking. So,
right.
I guess what do they do is have you put on the mask and walk around and see who has the demeanor to fit the role, or how does that happen with a character like that?
The way this happened was the stunt coordinator, Ron Hutchinson, who had done the 2 Rob Zombie films. When he read the script, he called Malik and said, hey, man, this script is different than the other ones. You're going to need a guy with really deep acting chops and who's a really good stunt man. Do you know anybody? And Ron was like, yeah, I know one guy. And so they called me. I live in Columbia, South Carolina. So they were shooting in Charleston. They called me up, asked me if I'd come down and get put on tape. So I went down. They put me on tape. They just wanted to see the way I move, my experience with, martial arts, with stunts, my acting experience. I was trained by Stella Adler, who trained Marlon Brando. I mean, I've had, so I've done a lot of, all these different things, dance experience, all these different things coming together. So they had me move. They talked about, the process and what this meant and the things I've done, like Buffy and then, so it was all on tape, and I didn't even get out of a parking lot. I just went in, got in my little pickup truck, wasn't even out of the parking lot. I got a call from Blumhouse in California, and they're like, are you available to shoot the film? I'm like, yeah. So I didn't even get to frickin' I-26, which was only like 3 miles away. They called me back, and they said, hey, David Green wants to meet you. So I went back. As I understand it, they considered one of the older Michael Myerses, but it was going to be way too physical for that. And so as I understand it, I'm really the only person they looked at seriously. So, once I went in, moved the way I move, and it's really all about movement, man. It's all about movement and containing that space and place inside where the character's alive. And so they had me kill a few people, and, it was cool.
That's awesome. And what you did, you had the movements down, and I'm sure any Halloween fan can agree, because as the movies have gone on, different ones, different actors playing the shape in different ways. Some guys had it down, some guys didn't. Of course, I know the Nick Castle way of doing it. Of course, back then, 1978, they were still figuring it out. You know what I mean? So I think beyond, like when Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all those came out, the way Nick did it in 78, that kind of set the bar, I guess, because there wasn't any other way to judge how Michael should move, right?
Well, I think the thing is like with the Rob Zombie films, you take Tyler Mane. He was a professional wrestler. So he's gonna embody a character in an entirely different way than I would. For me, it was because we had erased all the other films because those were all urban myth. So in our world, the only film that exists is 1978 and 2018. So what I did was, before I went down to get put on tape, let me backtrack. There was a great old character actor named Ted Knight. Was on a show called The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Sure.
Comedic actor. And I met him when I was just moved out to California. I was still waiting on tables, which I only had to do for a very short period of time. I was very fortunate. When I met him, this beautiful gift he gave me. He said he recognized that I was an actor, and he said, man, the best thing you can do is emulate. And he goes, when walking down the street, emulate the person walking down the street, emulate the bartender, emulate the preacher, emulate anybody you can get. But he said, but don't look at the way their feet are pointed. Don't look at the way they use their hands. Reach inside them, grab their soul, and let that dictate the way you move. And so that's what I started doing. It's a very spiritual experience. So what I did was I watched Halloween, the original Halloween, and all I did was reach into what Nick had created, because Nick is such a high creative. I mean, look at his filmography. The dude is super creative, right? So he says, I just walked. Well, no, it's like just saying to you, yeah, I just picked up a guitar. Bullshit, man. There's lots and lots that goes into that, right? So I just watched, and then there was a scene where he's walking camera left to camera right in the backyard. And as I watched him walk across the screen, I went, I got it. Like, I just got it. I just knew what that essence was. So that's the essence that I used to drive me when they put me on tape. And nothing changed. So when I when I did Halloween, when I did Halloween Kills, which we just finished, all I do is breathe into that space. I mean, as you know, what is your ritual before you pick up a guitar and go on stage? There's a switch you flip, right? And it may be so organic, some people don't think about it. For me, it's breath.
Well, that's
I breathe in.
That's what I was going to ask you, too, is like because for me, like getting ready to go on stage, if it's one thing to be sitting on the tour bus before the show and then you're hanging out, you're talking to friends. But when you get into what we call show mode, when you put on your your jeans or whatever you're going to wear on stage, then all of a sudden you take on this, it's a different persona, so to speak, So I was going to ask, like, every time you put the mask on, it had to be like a different feeling, right? I mean, you had to. I can only imagine the chills, as a Halloween fan, to go, okay, I'm the new star. I'm the star of the show. You put the mask on, all of a sudden you become somebody else.
Well, it was interesting because we were rehearsing that big long tracking shot. It was a day before shooting. Principal photography began, and so that big long tracking shot was they didn't think they were going to be able to get it. They thought we were going to have to stitch it together with CGI. Right. So we rehearsed it literally like 7 or 8 hours. Chris Nelson shows up from Los Angeles with this beautiful old leather Halliburton, and he's got 2 masks in it. And so he shows up, myself and David Green and Danny McBride and Ryan Turek and Ron and Chris. We all went back into a back room so nobody could see us because we're in a practical location. We're in a house. And he pulls the mask out and he brings it over to me and he puts it on. And when he puts it on me, collectively, everybody in the room went, oh, like there was this guttural moan. You know what I mean? And it was like everything changed for me because I already created the space where the character was. It was like freaking plugging the circuit in. It was like, all of a sudden it was like, whoa. And it was subtle, but it's like, the freaking lights went on. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it's just like, so, and that space, that thing that happened that first time I put the mask on, I carried that even though we opened the movie and the very first shots in Halloween were in that courtyard. That was the first day of shooting. Right. So, but I carried that connection with me from that point forward. So the scenes that I shot with the mask or without the mask, it wasn't a difference anymore. But I have to say, wearing the mask, creates such a universe, and the thing is, man, I will not wear that mask except when I'm making a film. Right. People have asked to do appearances. Chicks have asked if I cosplay and have sex. I mean, it's crazy, but
I can only imagine the requests you get.
I know it is. I mean, I try not to like snort laughing and spit on them. You know what I mean? It's like, but So that exists in my universe. That exists. So there was no difference between doing the first one and doing Halloween Kills. It's the exact same space. I mean, like when you're in show mode, man. When you're on, I mean, like you walk off stage and sometimes you go, look, wow, it's 3 hours later. It's maybe an hour and a half later. It's
right.
Wow, where'd it go?
Exactly. That is so cool, man. To know that. And was it when you put on the mask and you're walking around? That first off, that extended shot that you were talking about is one of my favorite scenes in not just Halloween, but any movie. I think that is such a brilliant form of filmmaking, doing that continuous shot, And I remember watching the behind the scenes about the rehearsal and it had to be just right, it had to be perfect. Yeah. And I absolutely love how they did that. The silhouette going across the house, it's just, that is absolute brilliant filmmaking, and that adds to the suspense like that original film had, where it was before technology and all these different things you could put together. They had to rely on filmmaking to make it scary, and I think that's why Halloween 2018 was such a huge success, because it had just enough new stuff, the gutturalness, the brutalness of the kills, but it was very keeping it real to the heart and soul of what the original movie was, and I think it's fantastic.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, and that tracking shot, it's athletic. The communication is so subtle and refined, and so because we couldn't have marks, and they would literally say, okay, when you come off the stairs and hit the sidewalk here, I need you 1 inch over, and with no marks, with no, so we had our communication. Subconsciously or just intuitively had to be so spot on. We ended up doing 9 takes to get that, but when we got it, we ran across the freaking set and just bear hugged me. It was like, dude, we got it. It was pretty cool, man. It was so worth it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a in the movie? Do you have a favorite kill scene from the new movie? What's your personal favorite where you're like, yeah, that's pretty badass?
I think there are two, because one of them is, in that scene, the kill scene in the window, because that is to me the way I would kill. That's the way this mafia hitman who lived with me for several months, half a year, when he got out of prison, and so we used to work out of him. He was an Aikidist. He's a IM2. He did sword work. I do swords, knives, that kind of stuff. So it was really the stealth nature of it that really, the stealth brutality. But I also have to say that bathroom scene was so much fun. It was just so brutal, and Rhiannon and Bob just both fought like banshees, man. And it was so much fun to just get in there and beat each other up. So I'd say there's like 2 of them,
I love the living room window scene where you stun the lady's head, you know what I mean? Put her in shock, and then that's like, God almighty, like that is intense. But that bathroom scene too, though, coupled with the music and you throwing dudes' teeth over the thing, it's like this is Halloween, on a different level. And this is why people, it's Michael's pissed. You know what I mean? he's coming back. Yeah. He's not just hiding in the sheets anymore. He's mad. My wife and I just showed the movie. My nephew is 7 years old. And he's like me. At a young age, he is really getting into scary movies, And he used to he would want to see just enough of them, just because he was interested in it, And then last weekend, he spent the night with us, and he begged and pleaded. He said, "Please," he loves Michael Myers. He said, "Please, I want to watch. I want to watch Michael Myers. I want to watch Michael Myers." I said, "Okay, we're gonna watch it." So I asked his mom and dad, my sister and brother-in-law. I said, "Look, I'm gonna show him Halloween, the new one." And he was so excited about it. He was so ready. He wanted pop. It was like he was setting up a date for himself. He was like, "I want popcorn.
Oh, that's awesome.
I want this." And I said, "Are you sure you're going to be okay to watch this? Because I don't want to show it to you, just because now you're excited. But if you're going to have nightmares about this, He said, "No, I want to watch it." So he watched it, and he adored the movie. His eyes were glued to the TV the whole time, and he was reacting to the kill scenes where you step on dude's head. He's like, he's looking at us, he's kind of looking over at us, and we keep glancing back at him, but he loved it. So you're influencing him even at a young age, and I was like, I guess I'm a okay uncle for showing a 7-year-old a murder movie, but it's all good.
Well, no, man, it's crazy because there are like 7-year-olds who are just totally fascinated, and 40-year-olds that are hiding under seats.
Right.
I mean, there's no rhyme or reason, but I think there's a certain thing with people who enjoy horror films who are really into them. First of all, I find that they are the kindest people,
Sure.
and their energy is the most nonviolent. You know what I mean? So I have this sort of suspicion that that people who are into horror sort of work out their shadow side in their subconscious by watching these films, and there's a certain healing that happens with people who enjoy horror films.
Absolutely.
I mean, quite the opposite of what you would think. You know what I mean, or what
Right.
the general public would think. They think
Right.
you're a bunch of violent creeps. No, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, and you go to Comic Cons and horror cons, like the horror con people are just the nicest people in the world, man. I mean,
Yeah.
they're, there's no pushing in line, there's no shoving, there's no arguments, there's no attitude. It's just they're all happy to be there. You go to Comic Cons and there's a cross section of people, lots of really awesome people, but there's some really edgy, pushy people in the Comic Cons where they're not. Zero in the horror cons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Because I think everybody's there. I think I went to Monster Palooza out in Pasadena a few years ago, and that's an incredible horror con, and everybody was so chill. I mean, you had people just walking around. I think it's because everybody's there for the same reason. The fans are there because they love the genre and they love everything about it, and then people like yourselves, the actors and the people making appearances, are there because they also love what they're doing. So it's not like a thing where there's a line drawn in the sand, so to speak, where it's like, well, these people are cooler than that, and these people stand over here, and that creates that kind of friction, Everybody's there for the same reason. They all want to celebrate the genre, and I think that's what's great about it. You do a lot of those cons. Beautiful.
Yeah, I do, and I'm really bummed that, this COVID thing, I think I've missed 5 or 6 so far this year. And I really love them, man, because there's just so much love. There's, I mean, some people save up for a year to do these cons, and
right.
This is really special for a lot of people, and it's really special for us, those of us who really enjoy doing it. And I love when Nick Castle does it, when he and I get to sit next to each other, because then we can just riff off each other and play practical jokes all day long. And I'm really missing it, man. I'm bummed. I mean, I'm stir crazy anyhow, because if I'm not moving, I'm sleeping.
Right.
So, this whole, locking down thing has kept me from doing one of the things that, I love making films. It's like when I'm in front of a camera, I have zero anxiety, zero stress. That's my wheelhouse, man.
Yeah.
And I love these cons, man, because just meeting these beautiful, beautiful people and having these wonderful experiences and being touched, even just briefly. I mean, this magic happens, and I'm missing it. I'm really missing it.
I'm the same way. We should be on tour, and it's like it's so hard. I'm the same way, like you just said. That's a good point. Is that when I'm on tour and you're on stage doing what you do naturally and what you love to do, yeah, you don't have as many anxieties and stresses it's like and one would think it would be the opposite. One would think, well, when you're in work mode, then you have all the pressure and this and this and this to do, and when you're at home, you can kind of let that go. When that can be the case to some degree, but in a situation more so like now anyway, where we just can't go out if we wanted to,
Yeah.
It makes it a little worse knowing that we could be and we should be doing something that we truly love to do, and hopefully you'll be able to do some cons this fall. I mean, I'm one can hope anyway.
Well, we're kind of looking at it's going to be like to work this out, because contractually I go to premieres, and whichever ones we can work in. Then I have cons slated for August, September, October, and November, but we may end up starting shooting at the end of October, like the last week, October, first week of November, or we may wait until January, February. So I really, and then there's the whole thing of whether this thing is going to come back around again, if it's going to be gone. Right. We don't know. I mean, there's so much up in the air, man. I want to go to work, though.
I hear that, and people want you to go to work. People need you. So when did you all wrap up Halloween Kills? That was done before the whole mess, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, we wrapped beginning of December.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we wrapped. I think it was like the first of December. I think.
Was the original plan to do Halloween Kills and Ends like simultaneous, like together, film it all at once, or was the plan to do one, take a break, and then film the next one?
They initially were thinking about doing back-to-back, which I'm really glad they didn't, because Halloween Kills was freaking brutal, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I was beat up. I was about to say beat the fuck up, but I was. It was just like, I mean, it was brutal, man. It was brutal, and those long days, and you're investing yourself 100%. Everybody, and it's amazing to have that many people working together and not have anyone lose their temper, not have anyone throw a hissy fit or a tantrum, but at the end of the shoot, man, we're all exhausted. I mean, certainly we all would have stepped up. We all would have done what we needed to do. But personally, for me, I'm glad that we poured all that intensity into Halloween Kills, and we get to breathe back and then move into Halloween Ends. Because Danny McBride and David Green, Jeff, and like they created a really beautiful trilogy, and so they're not resting on the laurels of Halloween now. Like Halloween Kills it's going somewhere new, which is what every artist should do. We need to explore, man. We need to take risks.
Yeah.
And these are really, really talented people who know how to take risks. These are calculated risks, right?
Right.
And so I'm excited about what we shot in Halloween Kills, man. I am super excited. I mean, I don't like watching myself. I don't like going to premieres. There's so many TV shows and movies I've done that I've never even seen. But, for me, it's the experience, it's the performance. That's what matters to me. And so, oftentimes when I go to a premiere or I see myself on screen, I get, I sweat. I'm like, gosh, I'm nervous. I'm a little anxious.
Right.
The complete opposite of the way I am when I'm working. So, I was down at Charleston, and David, we jumped in the editing room with Tim and the editor, and we started looking at footage, and oh man, instantly, like, I started getting goosebumps, and I left the room like I was just a person watching a piece of art. And it was freaking amazing, man. And all the guys, David Green has told me, Ryan Turk has told me, Chris Nelson has told me, everybody's loving what we shot. So I'm super stoked to see it.
And they did I was actually, when I remember the press release for the new Halloween coming out, when I heard that David Green and Danny McBride especially, of course, I think most of the people were like, at first taken aback by that, because they're obviously known for they're most known for their work in comedy stuff,
Yeah.
But they absolutely nailed, I think, the script, the directing. They totally get. And I think it's cool to have someone from outside, so to speak, of the genre come in and do it, because if you get too close to it, if it was a guy that did horror movies his whole life that might be really close to it, you might end up actually overdoing it.
I think the thing that the important thing here is. That comedians have to have a worldview, a view of humanity that nobody else sees. They see irony. They see the complexity of the human condition in a way that other human beings don't. I think they have a deeper understanding of human nature than most people. And so when you take these comic writers and in Rough House, in the offices, they have a big round table, and everybody just sits around and frickin' laughs. That's what they do. They sit around and laugh and make shit up. And so, their insight into, what works, I think made this a deeper, richer. I mean, look at the complexity of Laurie Strode's character. I mean, I volunteered for years and years and years with a thing called Family Constellation group therapy, dealing with victims of trauma. Traumatized individuals, man. I mean, and there's a lot of it on this planet. There's a lot of traumatized individuals. They wrote this character in a way that really, really respected and understood trauma, and she dropped into the trauma in that character in a way that only a brilliant woman like she could.
You're exactly right. And I was going to ask, it had to be like, was it surreal being with working with Jamie Lee Curtis? I'm sure you as a growing up probably respected and was a fan of Halloween. Was it kind of surreal, you putting on the mask? Now you're Michael Myers, and you're with Jamie Lee Curtis, and you're not reenacting, but you're revisiting that relationship that the two of them had, carrying over from the first movie. Was that kind of like, did you ever go, man, this is kind of bizarre? Like, I'm the guy now, it's me.
Yeah, no, I didn't, because once I got hired, I for any job, I just go into mission mode. So my left brain just takes a hike unless I need to, unless I need to do work that is specifically logistic or calculated or, but my left brain takes a hike. My right brain takes over. So really, I think what I'll do is after we finish the third one and I'm done, then I'll process it. Then I'll think about it. Right now, it just is. It's just what it is. When I go to work, I'm in mission mode. When I'm not there, I'm me. And there's a separation there, and I'm not going to cross that bridge. And the same thing is like when people ask about motivations for killing and all this other kind of stuff, I don't think about it. I mean, whatever is organically happening. Yes, the instrument is my body. Right. I know what I'm doing. I have to be very, especially moving the way I move, and with the extremely limited vision, a occluded eye, and the mask, and so there's a lot of focus and attention that has to happen. So there is left brain there, but I'm not, unlike any other character I've ever played, I didn't sit down and make a list of like, okay, working out this relationship and that relationship. This is purely organic. This is purely channeling.
Well, I think that's why you nailed it so well, because it comes off natural. It doesn't look like you're trying. You know what I mean? And that's the good thing about it. You're not overdoing it. You're not, the walks, the mannerisms, everything, the head turns. It's so natural looking, and that's just a testament to a true actor right there in his form. And I can agree to, because people have asked me when we play big shows, and they go, "Oh, do you ever?" When you're in the middle of the show and you look out at thousands of people, do you ever go, wow, this is crazy, this is happening? And sometimes, as much as I'd like to say, yeah, I do, I can relate to what you're saying, because you're in the moment. And it's not until after the show's over, or maybe after the tour's over, and you go home and you look back at a photo or a video clip of it, and you're like, holy hell, like, I can't believe that,
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like paying attention to that. We're not in the place we need to be in to channel the purity of what it is we need to do. And,
right.
And creative universe, I mean, it's all there. It's all in us. We just have to tap into it. And I think part of the great thing about doing what you do, doing what I do, is ideally we get to inspire other individuals to like, hey man, explore your creativity. It doesn't matter what you're doing for a living. What matters is that you're finding a way to be in that space. Man, if I could live in that space that I'm in when I'm in front of a camera, I would be the freaking Dalai Lama. I mean,
sure.
I would live in this state of eternal bliss. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it's the most beautiful place a human can exist in creativity. And what is creativity? I mean, I see that as the prime source, the universe, God, however you want to do it. It's about creativity,
Right.
So we get to live in that space, man. And I would encourage everybody to find something. Dude, if it's crocheting, if it's arranging flowers, if it's painting, like, pick up a guitar, like, who cares how good you are? Like, right. Find the joy, find the bliss in it,
Everybody has that spot of zen, like you said, that moment, that area of bliss in their brain that is totally beautiful. And everybody has it, like you said, whether it's doing anything, you could be a painter, an artist, or, a florist, whatever it is. Everybody has it. You just got to tap into it,
Yeah. I mean, dude, I'm a car guy, so it's amazing, the cars I've had and some of the guys that I've worked with on cars who know way, way more than me. These are really creative guys, especially when, with vintage automobiles, man, you got to get creative. Sometimes parts don't exist. It doesn't matter, where it is we find that and taking away the judgment and the pressure of needing to make a living. I just had dinner last night with my niece and her boyfriend. They both just graduated from college. He's in a band. He's going back to New York, and they're fixing to lay down tracks. They're fixing to jump into the studio, and
awesome.
and he's got a degree in accounting, but he's like, and I was encouraging him. He's like, no, man, I've got to go after this music thing. I mean, he's a bass player. His dad was a bass player, and he's jammed here at the house with the family. My nephews all play, and so we've had little parties and everybody plays, and I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, first of all, follow your bliss, whatever that is. The money will always come, and sometimes we have to do other things to make a living. Big deal. And other than that, if someone's got a wife and kids, or a husband and kids, or dogs, whatever. I mean, there's a reality of making a living, but there's always time to pick up a notebook and start scratching, sketches, or write a story, or learn to play a guitar, or,
Sure.
there's always room for that in our lives.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And now, I talked about this on the phone the other day. Now is the time to do that. Now is the time for no excuses, because everybody has the time, so
hence the blessing of this time, man,
Exactly
and the blessing of this time is that we get to do this too. That we get to hang out and chat. And, really, if I were in Europe right now and you were touring the United States, or wherever you're supposed to be in the United States right now?
In the U.S., yeah.
Okay, so there's no there'd be no chance we'd have this opportunity, but now we have it, so It's a good thing.
There's always silver linings. We always have to look for those silver linings. You know what? This is cool, and I forgot to mention this to you. And for anybody, James and I, he was nice enough to call me a few days ago to speak before this, and I really appreciated that too. But on October 19th, 2018, which is of course the day the new Halloween came out, you were in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And that's in Warren County, and they made that James Jude Courtney Day. And I forgot to mention this to you. Where I live in Glasgow, Kentucky, and Bowling Green is 30 minutes from where we live.
Oh, cool, man.
So it's really right in our backyard, and that's another cool thing about the Halloween, the Warren County, Smiths Grove, all that stuff is literally, I was just there yesterday. It's really cool, the connection between the movie and our area, of the woods that it has, and I love that. And I remember watching you on television that morning, our local TV channel, and you were on there and talking. And they declared that day your official day, so you're famous in this neck of the woods, pal.
It was awesome, man. The people were wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. I had the best time. They were the sweetest people, man. I mean, top to bottom. I hated to leave. It was great, and there is a certain generosity in the South anyhow. There's a certain gentility and genuine, but I think having something special, when any community can look at something that they can call their own and own it, a sense of pride in the community, not in a negative sense, but a sense of pride in knowing that they're special because of X, Y, and Z, you know what I mean? And then getting to be a part of their joy. Man, it was awesome, and that was the first time I made an appearance after the film. I mean, or for the film, so it was the first convention or haunt that I'd done, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
That's cool.
Got to meet the most beautiful people, man.
Awesome. Well, I know that's very nice of you to say. And I remember thinking it was so cool that day. The movie came out. It was that Friday. You were in town. I was like, man, this is kind of bizarre. The new Halloween's out. Michael Myers is in our backyard right now. I said, it made it more creepy. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it was a really cool haunt too. It was a really, really cool haunt.
Yeah.
It was kind of a little bit rainy and dark, and and just the perfect amount of people. So I got to really connect with just everybody, and the screening was fun too. And that was a little tough at first because I don't like watching myself, but then I had two guests on either side. I guess they had a drawing, and they had two special guests, and it was really cool because, that way it just made it real personal, as opposed to, an appearance. It was more just like hanging out with a group of people that, who join the same thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So obviously you've already filmed Halloween Kills. And you know everything about that movie. So, and because they announced doing the two together, Halloween Kills and Ends, do you already know what's up with Halloween Ends, or does that kind of come? Are they still working on that, or?
There's two answers to that. Yes, I do, because I know where I and Andy Matichak and Jame, we all have to know because there's preparation involved. There's new characters being introduced in every new film. So yes, the no is it's a work in progress even when you're shooting the film.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, literally, David Green will show up, or we'll show up to rehearse something, and before we shoot it, and he'll go, this ain't working, and he'll sit there right on his laptop and just start tapping out a new scene or change the scene. So it's always a work in progress, and so. But the body, what's going to happen? Yeah, I know. And I mean, and think about it. Christopher Nelson has to create prosthetics. There are all these elements. Special effects. Heath Hood, who's is actually, it's kind of a small world. His daddy and my brother knew each other. My brother's a politician, And Heath is, out of Beaufort, South Carolina, and wait till you see the stuff he does in Halloween Kills. It's crazy good. It's crazy good. It's so he has to know, because there's all these things that have to be built. Right. And everybody's kept really tight lips. No one's talking. No one's telling anybody anything that they don't need to hear.
Sure.
Probably make a few bucks letting a few people know, but nah.
Hey, the more this pandemic goes on, times could get hard. You might have to sell some secrets.
Well, it's crazy, man. I've had just insane offers for my mask. I mean, insane offers. And I'll, contractually, I'll get the Halloween Kills mask, but I have to wait until, contractually I have to wait until it's released. So basically what we're saying is we don't need it anymore. We're not going to shoot any more pickup shots. Okay, the mask is mine. And it's really, really cool. I mean, I've got it in the bank, a bank vault. I don't have it displayed quite yet, because I don't feel secure with it. And, this, and honestly, when the first one came out, people found out where I lived, had people banging on my door, and
sure.
There's that whole thing. And so I've sort of changed my lifestyle to, not that I feel threatened or anything. It's just a matter of privacy. And
sure. Well, you never know. You never know. I mean, you don't want anybody coming to your house trying to peep in the window, getting a glimpse of you wearing the Michael Myers mask. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. And that's the thing. It's the thing. It really is, man. It's a sacred space when I put that mask on. It really is, because it's such a spiritual experience. And so, because for me, I go to the place. It's beyond duality. It's beyond right and wrong, good and bad. People will label it pure evil or whatever. I mean, that's for fans to do. For me, it's beyond duality. It just is. And in my vision of the cosmos is more that I don't have a vision of God being a judgmental, anthropomorphized human being with lots of power. And my view of spirituality and is all that is. The sum total of all that exists and more. And so when I think about the vast intelligence in this universe, the universe doesn't judge if a cat kills a mouse or a whale plays with a seal, or this it just is. And so performing in that place of isness is what allows me to do what I do. And I would submit to you that's the exact same thing you do when you perform, man. You're just connected with all it is, and Prime Source is creating through you. Something that's never been created for that moment when you perform that particular way and that particular moment.
Exactly.
So it's a continuum of creation. To me, and I think that's why we find such bliss in doing what we do, because we truly are connected with the Creator in that moment. There's no filter. There's nothing in between it. Just us, one together.
It's what you're allowing yourself to do. And it might be cliche to say, but it's what you're born to do. And as a musician, I feel like that's what I was born to do. So when you're in that moment, when you're doing what you do, I do what I do. Anybody does what they feel like they are put on earth to do. Yeah, there is no filter there.
Yeah. It's just a matter of working on your chops, man. And that takes grinding. You just got to grind through stuff. You got to learn, and it's tough, man. I mean, it's tough in an enjoyable way, but I every one of my actor friends, every one of my musician friends, my artist friends, every single one of them, there's two common denominators, I think, in what it is we do. First of all, I don't know anybody who has succeeded who hasn't gotten their ass kicked unmercifully at some point. Something in their life has, and it'll happen again and again in life, but it's how we show up. It's how we deal with those challenges, how we incorporate those challenges into our art, into our life, into the way we treat other human beings. And the second part of it is, man, it's hard work and persistence.
Yep.
It's persistence.
Persistence.
More than any other thing.
That's key. There are tons of talented people out there, but if you lay on the couch all day, nobody's going to see you do what you do.
Right.
So, one of my favorite quotes is too. I'm a huge Elvis fan, and Elvis used to always say, ambition is a dream with a V8 engine. And I was like, there's a difference between dream, having the dream. Everybody has a dream of some sort, but it's the ambition part that comes along with that dream is what sets the difference. That's what makes the difference.
Yeah. Man, as I look in the rearview mirror of my life, the highway is littered with bodies of people who quit too soon.
Yep.
People who had talent, had allegedly had drive, but I've seen so many people, especially when I was living in Los Angeles, they come out and, well, I'm giving myself 3 years. I'm like, dude, you need to go home now.
Yeah.
Just go home now. You know what I mean? Yep. If you give yourself, if you're here, if you're jumping in and you're throwing the life vest off and going, I'm swimming over there. Like, dude, you'll get there. Right. But if you give yourself artificial limitations, then you're setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
So, whatever it is, a marriage, certainly, I'm committing to a band, committing to any expression that we're going to do. It has to be open-ended and just like, okay, I'm committed, man. This is what I'm going to do. Understanding that as creators, as human beings, we need to learn and morph and change. How many people have started out, like Garth Brooks playing rock and roll and end up doing country? I mean, right. It's like we just learn and grow and find our particular space, our groove in the world. And we know when we find our groove, Absolutely. And, and this might be weird to say too. We give people advice. There might be young musicians out there, and it's kind of weird advice, but it's true. People go, did you ever have a backup plan? When you were in school growing up, you wanted to play music. I was like, honestly, I never set a backup plan for myself because I always thought that if I had a backup plan, then that was a safety net. And I was like, I don't want the feeling of a safety net because then I'm always going to know, well, if this doesn't work out, I've always got that to do versus just going, I've got this and I gotta make this happen or, nothing, Yeah.
So I know that's sometimes it can be miscued as bad advice because I know there is a safety of wanting to have something to fall back on, so to speak. But then again, you've got to, if you want to do something, you just got to absolutely do it. Absolutely, man.
In my career, I've had really, really great years when I was younger and, and tough years. And, it was up and down and like any career can be. And I remember at one point, a very dear friend of mine who, he's had kind of a rock star life. He was, he had a band that was really, did really, really well and had a couple of big hits. And then he wrote several screenplays that were made into films. And now he's a big yoga instructor. His life has been storied. And he, but he's just sort of shifted with the tides. And at one point he's like, hey man, do you have a contingency plan? Every good military operation has a contingency plan. I was like, dude, I went to the Cortez School of Military Management. Like, when Cortez landed on the shores of Mexico, he had the slaves empty the ships and then he set the ships on fire and he looked to his men and said, we conquer or we die. And it was like, and to me, it's like, I like you, I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed to be, like, this is it, man. Like this, I'm all in. And if I die, I die. But if I don't, I'll know more joy than I ever possibly could have known, staying home and being a lawyer or, a doctor or an Indian chief. You know what I mean? I think the caveat to that is we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with what we're good at and what we're not good at.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so we look at something we're good at, or maybe we're not, that we need work on, and go, okay, am I good enough to really work at this and flesh out this thing that I have, or do I really need to give up the idea of being this because I'm never going to be freaking Lance Armstrong. I will never, ever, and I've been biking for years. It was one of my exercise forms. I knock out 50, 60 mile rides in California, mountain biking, road biking. It was just a great way to clear my head. But I would never be a bike racer. I'm 6'3", 210 pounds, man. It's like this. It's just not going to happen. So
it's not in the cards. Yeah,
it's not in the cards, man. So being honest with ourselves and sometimes being a little naive is good. Certainly the naivety of believing that you could be a rock star, that I could be a movie star. Right. I never thought of it in those terms. I knew in fourth grade that I was going to do this, and so it was just a natural progression once I got out of college. And frankly, I still plan to have kids, and when I have kids, should I be blessed with them, I would encourage my children, if they wanted to be a musician or want to go into movies, to get out of high school and go to work. College is awesome, and I love it. I love my time there. I'm grateful for the education. I'm grateful that my 6 brothers and I have beautiful educations. My parents worked so hard to make that happen. But really, I would now at this other side, I would go, man, get out and work. You're never going to learn in a college what you're going to learn in a studio or on stage or in front of a camera.
Right.
You know,
You have to, if you're going to follow a trade like that, you have to, there's no other better learning than on the job itself, you know? There's no preparation for that. It's like you just have to do it. And I'm the same way. I got out of high school. I didn't do college, and it was hard at first because my mom was a school teacher.
Oh, wow.
So having that conversation, but they were super supportive, and if we had to strike while the iron was hot, we all graduated together, and it was like, okay, now we have to move, and we have to prove it to our parents that and prove it to ourselves. Okay, we're not gonna sleep all day long during the summer either. We're gonna get up. We're gonna write songs. We're gonna play any single show we could play. We have to continue stepping. So you're exactly right, and I think that's knowledgeable advice to give someone.
Yeah, it's funny, and it's actually at a doctor's office, here in Columbia, and turns out one of the doctors in the office, his daughter works on Yellowstone with my buddy Gil Birmingham. Gil's a Native American actor, and Gil's an amazing human being, man. He's a deeply spiritual man, great athlete, great, wonderful actor, insanely good musician, and insanely good guitarist, and. We're talking. His daughter's young, and Gil has been mentoring her, helping her navigate what it means to be a young, successful artist. And then he's like, "Well, wow, that's kind of crazy, man. You get to live here and here. Why aren't you living in Los Angeles?" So I'm like, at this point in the game, I can live anywhere because I don't audition; they come to me.
Right.
And he's like, "Wow, well, that's really cool. How's that happen?" And he goes, "Man, I'm 63 years old, dude. It took me a while to get here.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? It took work to get here, and belief, and faith, and friends. You know what I mean? And I don't know about you, but I find that the vast majority of work I've gotten has come through personal relationships. Like Ron calling me to do Halloween.
Right.
It's like these personal connections that we have in the industry and around us that we nurture. And if you're a good guy and you treat people well, that will come back around. If you're generous with your time, you're generous with your art, you're generous with your money when you have it, Right. It's really important for us to give and to mentor young people who are coming to you and say, "How do I do it, man? How do I do it?"
It all comes full circle, and I think in the business too, I would rather hang out with somebody that has more personality and more genuine heart for everything than somebody that's a knot on the log, that could be the most talented dude out there ever, but has the personality of a rock. And it's like, and honestly, I think it's like you said, those friendships and those relationships that you nurture over the years, that will get you farther than, I think, almost than the craft itself in a weird roundabout way,
I get it. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I probably could look back at people who've done bodies of work that there were other more talented people or that could have filled those slots, and that could have been in those positions, but because they had nurtured personal relationships, were brought along on something. I mean, I remember one time I stunt doubled a guy. I mean, it was driving a car and doing a stunt in a car, but I stunt doubled a guy who was like 5'4", and I'm 6'3", and so I just had to slide down. And normally you wouldn't do that, but the stunt coordinator was a friend, and he wanted to throw me a couple bones and make me some money, and so. I mean, to the degree where, and I really do agree that, if you're going to play an African American, you shouldn't have a white person playing it. I believe that if it's a female role, you should have a female playing it. But there are certain times and places where, having a friend call and say, "Dude, I need you. Can you help me?" That's what it's all about. It's do you guys when you toured, you do meet and greets?
Yeah, so normally, like when we first started, we would do them like every single night after the show. We would go to our merch booth table and we would sit out there for hours, and hours and hours. And now we try to do them a little differently, be it like if a venue has one set up or a radio station, It's a little harder now, like especially if we tour in Europe or something and we're doing a lot of the bigger shows. when you're playing, like when we're doing Wembley Arena over there for 10,000 people, it's hard to say, hey, we'll meet you at the merch booth after the show. You know?
Yeah.
It's a little. But we still a couple of tours ago we did meet and greets before the show, like right when they opened doors, we did them, and we had like a little section set up and worked with the venue. And we let as many people come through there as absolutely possibly could within a time frame, you know, because we only had so much time. Because obviously we can't do it without them. So we always try to give back as much as we can whenever we can. And I think it all depends on the space, the availability, if there's some people there to help coordinate it, because the last thing you want is just a rush of people, and then you're backed up against a wall, and at that point you can't even give anybody the time that they actually deserve at that point. You can't even shake a hand. You're just trying to get a breath out, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing though. You know, whether it's the conventions or the cons or the meet and greets, how even in that really really short space of time, even seconds, how you can have a meaningful connection with another human being.
Sure.
That affects both of you. It affects you, it affects me, it affects the fan. I mean, we can have these really beautiful, meaningful that touch us. And I can remember so many of them, and I've met thousands and thousands of people, but there's so many of them I can remember, you know, just out of the blue, a memory will come of a really cool person I met, or a touching moment, you know.
Right. We've always said, when somebody says to us, you know, hey, the song of yours, you know, it helped me through a rough time in my life, or we played this one song of yours at a family member's funeral because it was a ballad or whatever. When they say that song meant that much to me, that's when we always say, you know, that to us means more than any accolade or award or any of that stuff. You know, all that stuff is great, but when it really hits the human connection with somebody like that, a song, that's the ultimate payoff. You know, it's just like with you, when somebody comes up to you and says, you know, you affected me in such a way that, you know, it inspired me to want to do this or inspired me to do that. That, you know, I think I can speak for you because you're a pretty deep cat, knowing that's the ultimate payoff.
It is, man. It is. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure you would be that way naturally. I'm that way naturally. But I had a mentor named Alan Vint, who back in the day was going to be like the next Steve McQueen. And he really mentored me as an actor, and he mentored me as a writer. And I'm very close to making a feature film that I wrote. But he did a little wrestling film called Reversal with another friend, Jimmy Petula. And Alan, you know, the film did well for a low-budget film. It was marketed on the internet. They four-walled it. It was in theaters around the country. But they got over 1,000 letters. Because it was a father and son story about a high school wrestler. And so Alan got over 1,000 letters saying, you know, my husband and son haven't spoken in 7 years, but after watching your film, they have a relationship again. And Alan was like, you know,
it's amazing.
Fuck the money, man. Shoot me in the head. I've done my job. Like, I've done my job. That's what I needed to do, you know?
Exactly.
And so, I won't broach personal experiences, but there have been people with deep, deep trauma who for some reason chose to go watch Halloween. And somehow it moved them out of their trauma into, you know, one particular thing with, you know, like I laughed, I cried, and I finally got to actually examine what I just experienced and realize that, you know, that I can heal, that I can. And how does that happen? I mean,
it's weird, you know, right? Those movies like that, like we talked about earlier, it's therapeutic for most.
It is.
You know, it's therapeutic for most because they might see themselves as the Michael Myers character. They might see themselves as the Laurie Strode character. And whatever it is, they can relate in some weird way. And, you know, it's therapeutic for their soul and their mental, their psyche.
Yeah, it is, man. I think that's what really, really I love about this is what Jame has done with Laurie Strode. You know, she is, man, and I've said this before, it's like in this hashtag Me Too moment, in this moment of female empowerment, like Jamie Lee Curtis is the poster child for an empowered female.
Sure.
She's honest. She has deep integrity. She has deep compassion. She has passion. She has love. She does not suffer fools gladly. And I pity the fool that picks a fight with her. You know what I mean?
I can imagine.
You know what I mean? And dude, I'm going to tell you, and physically, I mean, so we're right around the same age, and physically she is, oh man, she is strong, and she's athletic. And and I mean, there's everything about her is so, like, I've said this in panels and cons, is like, for young women, look at Jame. That's what you want to be.
Yeah.
You want to be a woman like that. That's your ideal. And I think the film portrays that, even her willingness to be self-reflective in the film. And the next one's going to be, it's going to follow this natural through line, and I think it's really beautiful that Andy Matichak, who's, I think, just a brilliant actor and a beautiful, beautiful woman. I think the casting of her as the granddaughter, sort of the DNA of Laurie Strode,
right,
but with a deeper, richer understanding, having walked through this maze with her. I just think it's fascinating that they created that, and the casting couldn't have been more perfect. And certainly Judy, was, I mean, as the daughter, but I mean, I think Andy as the granddaughter really, really just like, it's almost like the two halves of the same piece of DNA. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say it's almost like she is closer to her in the movie, her grandmother, than her mother. Obviously, it's like they're both cut from the same cloth. Obviously, they didn't suffer traumatically, but Laurie Strode's character suffered her own stuff traumatically, and then now she is suffering as a young adult. The granddaughter is suffering through her own traumatic stuff, but they can weirdly relate. And I think that's that's brilliant. And that last scene where she's holding the knife too at the very end, it's just like, I don't know, that was so good. That was so good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, isn't it weird? It seems to be, Bob Marley talks about, when you listen to music, you feel no pain, right?
Sure.
But it's either in the joy of art, of music, or it's in trauma that we come together. And, in a beautiful way, I think this whole COVID-19 thing is causing a lot of us to reassess our relationships, and this is a traumatic event for us. This is
Absolutely.
A traumatic event, for the world. But so much good is coming from this, because so many people are taking the time to look at their families and their communities and going, there's that woman in New York who went and took $800,000 with a line of credit to go buy materials for the hospital, for the frontline workers in the hospitals, because our government has failed us so miserably.
Right.
So here's a woman who gets an $800,000 line of freaking credit to go out and be of service.
Just to help others.
Just to help others.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's humbling.
It is humbling, man. It is.
It's humbling, and it's a huge mirror. It's a huge mirror for everybody to look into and like you said, reflect, self-reflect, and to take time to take stock in what's important, in our lives.
Has this affected what you're writing? I mean, can you see there's any kind of influence in what you guys are writing and creating?
Somewhat. We luckily finished recording our new album that will come out at the end of the year. We recorded it right before the official lockdown happened, so we got out by the skin of our teeth in the studio.
Mazel tov, man! Congratulations!
Yeah, I mean, we just finished it, but now looking back, like the artwork, the album title, and stuff, which we haven't revealed yet to the public, all of this happening is kind of playing into that now. So
cool.
And what's weird, some of the songs that we had written before this, oddly enough, like we were talking on our group text yesterday with the band, going, man, this song makes so much sense right now, but we wrote this song 2 years ago.
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
and it's weird that we didn't put the song on our last album 2 years ago. It's weird that we held on to it, and now it's going to be on the new one, and it makes so much more sense now than it would have. So, again, it's one of those divine intervention, lines up in the cosmos things where it just, now's its time to shine. So it'll be interesting to see people's reaction when it does come out.
Yeah, well, I mean, outside of this 3D illusion, there is no time and space, right? So, I mean, I firmly would say y'all were already tapped in to this right. moment in time and space. So it wouldn't be an accident. It's not a fluke that you created something 2 years ago that's applicable to this moment.
Right.
I would say that it was in perfect keeping with who you are and what you do, and how all of y'all are tapped into this creative universe and to this shifting. I mean, because I believe the consciousness of the planet is shifting radically right now.
Sure.
And frankly, I think it's your generation and the generations below you, the younger, who are really, really going to change, because this planet. But we are getting, like for the first time, we're seeing the Himalayas. Wildlife is back in the national parks, and we look at all these things that are happening. We're getting concrete proof that we're destroying our environment. So what are we going to do about it?
That's right. What we were doing to the planet. Now the planet is thriving because we're not able to do anything. Like ocean life was being left alone, and now ocean life is great. Like you said, you can see these mountains that we haven't seen. You can see this and the pollution. So maybe Mother Earth just needed a break from humanity for a minute.
Well, this is certainly an educational moment. And I have a friend who's a kind of a world famous astrologer that you never hear from. He's very, very low key. But the level of politicians and artists and business people, banking, all this kind of stuff that he works with, which is why he's so low key. He doesn't want anybody. These are people you'd never know follow astrology. And for me, astrology is just probability. It's just one more guidepost we have. He's always been right with politics. He's always been right with the women I meet. He's always been right with me with business. So I've known him for 35 years. He's been a beautiful counselor. He said that this basically, he said out of this, he said this is basically collateral damage. The economy right now, this COVID-19 is collateral damage to what he termed a spiritual war. And he said basically the good guys won. So, and I won't go deeper into it, but what he did say was, watch, he said over the next 5 years, you're going to start to see parity in income between men and women. You're going to start to see economics balance between first world and third world countries. Sure. Between different races and peoples on the planet, indigenous peoples and the conquerors. So I think the balance of what's going to change because of this moment is so far greater than we can see from this point. But I have the sense, based on what Brian's saying, my friend, based on what other people are talking about in my own personal spiritual values and what I see, and having communications with people like yourself. That this time is going to make us a richer, deeper, better people. I really believe that.
I do too. We're all taking stock in what's important to us right now. So that's the beautiful thing about it, man. Yeah, I'm not going to keep you. I know you got stuff to do, but I do have two more questions.
Okay.
What can you tell us about Halloween Kills? If there's one thing. Like a hype phrase or hype something you could give the adoring fans out there in the Halloween world about Halloween Kills, because that's what we're all looking forward to. Not the fact that we can go out and go to bars anymore. We're all looking forward to October. Right
on. Me too, man. I'll say it's got it's effing brutal. It's brutal, and it's got layers. It's got layers that are so rich. It's the textures, musically, the painting of Michael Simmons' cinematography. It's a deeper, richer, more brutal, natural progression from what we did in 2018. So yeah, it's special, man. It really is. I mean, I'm really, really deeply satisfied with it, and so is David Green, which is really important.
I cannot wait for that. And if Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Leatherface walk into a bar, what happens? What happens at this
Michael
time?
Myers gets laid.
Hey, he takes the night off, huh? He says, have at it, boys.
Exactly. Let those two fight. I'm leaving with the chick at the end of the bar.
I'm out. I love that. That's great. When I see you, you have to sign this guy for me.
Oh, happy to, man. Happy to.
I don't know why mine doesn't look as good as yours, though. I need one of those.
It's a startup face under the mask that helps, man. It's always,
It's
you
funny.
take as many blows to the face I have, and you look like me too.
It's funny how much science goes into the anybody that puts the Michael Myers mask on. You go to the Halloween store or whatever, you put them on, and the head has to fit just right, or it looks like you're just shaking this mask around. You know what I mean? So I assume you probably had to get molded right and sculpted to make that just absolutely perfect.
And then the Trick or Treat mask, which is based off the cast of the mask I wore, which fits me just perfectly. I've put the Trick or Treat mask on, and it almost fits like a Chris Nelson mask, but not quite. And I think they might have just made it a little more accessible because I don't have a big head, you know, so they made it more accessible for everybody to be able to buy. But yeah, man, it's funny because, you know, when like Nick Castle put my mask on, it was a little difficult because he has a longer face. Right. So a little difficult the mask looked different. It's so pliable. Christopher Nelson is a freaking genius, dude. He's a freaking genius. And all his prosthetics, you know, I mean, I had the prosthetic eyes, the prosthetic hands, you know, all the prosthetic cuts and burns and, you know, all that kind of stuff is really, really cool.
The hand at the end looked so good when it's just like dripping with blood, you know, it's like, God almighty. It's so awesome. Yeah. Like it looks like it stings, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's just so much thought went into it and you know, and the joy of working. And here's the cool thing, man. Christopher Nelson is also a musician. He's a pretty radical guitarist. So every morning I'd show up in makeup because we spend an hour to an hour and a half in makeup, usually about an hour. So he would pull up, it might be blues, it might be jazz, it might be the Ramones, it might be, you know, like, I mean, it was, you know, I grew up a big David Bowie fan. He's a big David Bowie fan. I mean, sure. You know, like there are certain, we have very similar musical tastes. So he would plug in an album and we would listen to that album and somehow magically it would set the tone for that day. Somehow he would intuit the music we needed for that day to set the tone.
I love it.
And that's how we began our day every single frickin' day with music, man. And that created the space for us to get through our day in that vibration of that particular, you know, that artist's message and heart and soul in that particular album that we listened to. So it was really cool, man.
I love that. And did you know, I forgot to ask you this earlier, did you know at the end of this new Halloween, did you know there would be 2 more coming after at the time, or was that news to you when they came back and said, okay, this one was such a huge success, we have more ideas, we're going to keep it going?
No, I knew. They had a 3-picture deal. Blumhouse, Rough House, and Universal and Miramax had a 3-picture deal. Basically, Miramax has stepped away. So they knew they had a 3-picture deal. We all knew it, but as far as deals go, they did a 1-picture deal with me and myself and with Andy, and, you know, Jame already had, as I understand it, a 3-picture deal. So when we stepped into Halloween Kills, I signed a 2-picture deal. So I signed for Kills and I signed for Ends. All the things are worked out. You know, we're just ready to plug in. We're ready to go. But, you know, we knew there were going to be 3. And you know, we really knew, like Andy and we all knew we wouldn't be replaced. We knew that we had such an insanely cohesive cast and crew that we knew we are. And dude, when we went back to shoot Halloween Kills, 98% of the crew was back. I mean, people left, you know, they left other jobs. I mean, it was like right down to like production assistants and you know, I mean, every department, wardrobe and special effects, and, you know, the camera department, same guys came back. I mean,
well, when you find what works, you don't fix what's not broken. You know, it's like
right.
You gotta keep the team together. It's just like us on the road. You got guys that will, you know, they'll fall on the sword for you. That'll go the extra mile. You know, you don't want to change that chemistry, because it's not just the chemistry and the people on the screen. It's behind the screen too that makes it the magic. You know, I mean.
Absolutely, man. And, you know, the level of creativity, especially when you have each department, is so highly creative. You know. And, you know, my mother came down to Charleston to see the first one shot. And she was like, and she'd never seen me work before. And she said, I never understood why movies were so expensive to make until I saw like 96 people working like bees, you know, like ants on a hill. And then you hear, you know, roll camera and everything will stop. And then as soon as they say cut, boom, people start moving again, and everybody knew what they were doing. There's an artist over here painting this, and there's someone making this, and, you know, building a scaffold and building a set, and, you know, all these beautiful things. So look here, man, I definitely want to see y'all perform when you get back on the road, man. I think it'll be a lot of fun to hang out. And
you are invited to any show we ever do, and if we come in your area, I will definitely. Hopefully, that will be sooner than later. And hopefully you're back at it too sooner than later, and we can catch up in person, and because I could talk to you for hours about different random stuff. You're a gentleman and a scholar, and I appreciate your time. And also, I gotta say, congratulations to you. You just mentioned this too. You are the only guy, I'm sure you know this, to play Michael Myers the longest running. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I think someone said that.
Yeah,
I think because Halloween did too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So in the actual series of Halloween, you know, if you don't count any kind of remake or re-envisioning, you know,
right,
they've had different ones. So the Halloween 2018 kills and ends. There's no any other guy that's done 3 in a row. So except for James Jude Courtney, and we're glad it's you.
I'm a lucky man, dude.
You're a
I'm
lucky man. Please tell me you have the Halloween theme on as your ringtone, by the way.
You know, man, I am so low key.
No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. You know, you have to draw a line somewhere.
yeah, absolutely. And I've got all the Halloween, cast and crew T-shirts and sweatshirts and all but I don't wear anything. I don't, I think I have a Halloween. I have a Michael Myers key fob for my little MG and my Triumph Bonneville. But other than that, I don't have anything out in public that would give any indication of who I am. And it's kind of nice, man, because unless you're fans will recognize me and they'll see me in a restaurant or a bar or whatever, they're out, and that's always super gracious.
Sure.
But it's not like being Brad Pitt or George Clooney where I'm walking down the street and everybody's going to crane their neck, which is great. I get to be anonymous, at this point in the game.
You can do your own thing.
I like it.
Yeah, so you're not dressing up as Michael on Halloween giving out candy then anytime soon, huh?
Not anytime soon, man. Now, who knows, man? I may get destitute when I'm, 20 years from now, and I may need to do it. But I'm selling cars at Joe's Auto Body or whatever. But
if you do that, I'm coming to your house asking for candy, and I can imagine you give out the good stuff too.
Oh, no doubt, dude. I've been doing. Well, I got to tell you, man. I graduated from high school in 1975. The '60s came late to South Carolina.
Sure.
So my candy experience has been pretty thorough.
I can only imagine. My man, thank you so much for taking time out today. I appreciate this, and have a great rest of your weekend. I can't wait to catch up with you in person one day.
Yeah, man, I really look forward to it. Really look forward to seeing, hearing you play, man. You make beautiful music, and I'd love to see y'all perform. That's just the icing on the cake, man.
Well, thank you. Now I'm going to go watch Halloween again, so... Thank you, brother. Have a great day.
You too, my brother.
See you, man.
See you.